taken on one summer holiday at the shack. There she was, hanging up a sheet in the sun, the same wide teeth as him, the same sort of boneless nose. Different hair, though. Hers, a blonde animal that moved in the wind. He was like his father, wiry, black, not from these parts. By her shoulder was the window, and inside you could just make out a jam jar with a flower in it. It was like being smacked on the arse by God. Couldn't have been more than a month after she was hanging up that sheet that they'd been driving in his dad's old brown Holden when a truck hadn't stopped at the intersection. When he woke up, there was no more Mum and no more old brown Holden. It wasn't difficult getting out of the rental agreement. He'd been late and short in the last 3 months since Lucy left. A week from then, and he was on the road. 2 suitcases of clothes. The rest of everything in boxes for the op shop, and the padlock keys burning his thigh through his pocket. He'd taken the first part of the journey that evening. Ended up in a motel close to midnight, with a sun-faded poster of a lion eating a zebra above his bed. He hadn't slept. He'd drunk from a 3/4 empty bottle of old, and he'd let himself think about Lucy then. The sick feeling of trying to make it all right. The endless meetings they'd had across the table to see if there was a way round it. The months afterwards when he'd sweated if he dropped a plate. The look on her face. Careful, or I'm going. Or when the coat hangers tangled themselves and made a jangling as he shook them. Her pointed silence. There were other things he thought of in that wide-awake night. Being alone, fixing himself up, getting done with the drink, sorting through the things in his head as she'd wanted him to. He stopped the ute and opened the door. Holding his hat onto his head, he stepped into the sound of cicadas that shrilled like push-bike bells from the cane. He slammed the door louder than he'd meant to and walked towards the shack. The smell of sweet ozone and the clump of his boots in the dust was alien. It was darker and smaller than he remembered. It tilted inwards a little like a sagging tent. He cleared his throat. "Hi!" he called before reaching for the door. Inside, it hadn't changed, and it made his chest tight to see. There should have been broken windows, mess left by kids, dust and leaks, mould on the walls. But there was not. The shack had a feeling about it like it had been waiting. There were no wildflowers in jars. It wasn't swept. There wasn't the sparkle of sand in the cracks of the floorboards. But the placement of things was just the same. It was like the last person there could have been his grommet self 15 years ago, and it made a warmth at the back of his throat. No one was there. There were no other belongings, just the old things that had lived there forever. On a high shelf, a grey elephant, a Cupid doll, and a mother-of-pearl shell. The wedding cake figurines of his parents and grandparents that had always stood on the telephone table, dustless inside their glass bell jar. There was no telephone. He'd forgotten that. Sat on the stack of plastic chairs in the corner, a Father Christmas with a felt body and a rubber face. The wood-burning stove that had been put together a little wrong and now and again used to chug black smoke into the room, which would have his mother up and in the doorway coughing and flapping with a tea towel. He took a step inside and heard the familiar creak of the floor. The place wouldn't recognise him this heavy or hairy. The sink was dry, with a sprinkling of dead flies upside down in it. The beds were there too. A double and a rickety single, all close together so that as a kid he'd lain awake, wide-eyed at the sound of his parents at night, wondering what is that and why are they doing it? A thin blue and white striped blanket covered his old bed, tucked at the feet in the way he hated, where you'd have to kick your way free so your feet didn't pin you down. He dragged out the mattresses, and afterwards he slung the bed frames in the back of the ute. The idea of